Today on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, we all get the representation that we have been craving and some of us never knew we needed because Ms. Marvel has finally dropped on Disney Plus, and we are going to talk about episode 1, Generation Y.
Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
And I'm Jeff Randall.
And in our third chair today, we have Zuhair Ali. How you doing, Zuhair?
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Ya Ali Madad. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, man. Welcome. You've been dropping on all the draft and fantasy league episodes lately, and we're just happy to have you on this here. You have a sort of cultural connection to this, and I was really excited that you were so excited for this show. How was your experience? First episode?
When they had the first featurette at the Disney event last year, that managed to make me tear up. So you can only imagine like the effect that this first episode had. And then it also depends what part of me you're asking. Like the Marvel fanboy loved it, the animation podcaster loved it, the immigrant Pakistani Muslim loved it. Like every facet of mine was just so just in love with this. Like her character, the delivery, just the incorporation of culture, and it's like taking the best parts of Bollywood and just having like the Disney love added to it. Like, man, all of it just, it's so relatable. Like the emotional parts really hit, and the family interaction stuff really hits, and it's a whole level of emotion that the MCU just provides. And like, I'm getting like emotional talking about it now. It's so exciting that they actually took this path, because there's a lot of Indian representation, which is fantastic, but like the fact that these are actual Pakistani Muslim characters, you know, having so many similarities with the culture and the for better or worse, the culture stuff that I grew up with that's actually on screen on such a big platform is amazing.
That's amazing, dude.
I was fighting so hard to not like interject with. So you're really like positive on the parental disappointment, right?
I relate to it. I wanted to give the poor girl a hug afterwards.
God, same on so many levels.
The one line that really got me was when her mom was like, the thing, like she was sitting there staring in the mirror, and she was thinking she needed to be more modest for other reasons, not necessarily just for modesty purposes, but she was a little ashamed of her body. And like, that was a really relatable moment. And she starts to put the, what's that called? The thing that she puts around her waist.
Dupatta, but that means scarf.
Scarf. Okay. I was going to say a scarf, but I thought there was a name for when you tie it around the waist.
Dupatta.
So she puts the dupatta around her waist, ties it off, and right as she's doing that, her mom walks in, and then her mom says, "You're not going to wear be scantily clad like all these little girls, all these skimpy outfits like all these other girls. That's not you." And like, there was just there was amazing piece of acting from Miss Marvel actress, and she's just like, you can tell that that's not you. The mother being very suppressive and being like, it's not that she wanted to be skimpy, but she doesn't want to be told who she is. You know what I mean? And she really, really bristled at that. But at the same time, it's just she's been beaten down. Like she's been told who she is her whole life, and she wants to be herself. And I think we all relate to that.
It's amazing that part of it was after the shopping scene, because you got to see like the random other auntie that comes in, and they're just gossiping about people that are just in their community and stuff. So you understand that it's like, it's not even just your immediate family that's judging you, it's your whole community. It's your dad's cousin's, brother-in-law's son that's, judging you without even knowing who you are. So the guilt trip that's held by immigrant parents is that, hey, we brought you over from this country so that you could succeed. So any indication that you could go against that is like, shame on us.
Yeah, so, it's an affront.
Yeah. So you have to be perfect to everybody, and the communities and the families are so huge that the impact of like, it's not even that she's worried just about her daughter, but she's worried about how the family is like portrayed to everybody else, because you have like this perfect Muslim son and then the wacky daughter.
Yeah. And did you notice in that scene when the other auntie, played by the incomparable Anjali Bhimani. Sorry, she's great. Anyway, did you notice before that auntie came in, the mom was like, "No, she's not too short. This thing is too long." And then whenever the auntie came in and was like, they were chatting, and the auntie looks over and she's like, "You're too short for that." Then her mom changed up to, yeah, you're too short for that. Like her mom was defending her when it was just them.
Yeah.
But when someone else, like, I guess that she respected or cared about the opinion of, said, "You're too short for that," she was like, "No, yeah, that's exactly right."
Group shaming.
Well, and there's also the line where she tells her she needs to look in the mirror a bunch today because she wants her. I think that means she wants her to stay looking nice as she goes to school. And then the dad tries to be like, you don't have to look in the mirror that much, like it's not that important what you look like, and that's tough. That's tough. That like pressure to be put together and look nice. And
that was for the driving test.
No, you're right. You're totally right.
But they waited on that.
They wait on that.
Talking about mirrors with no context. So I was thinking the same thing, and I was like, "Oh, thank God."
I still had that in my notes, and I forgot about the reveal.
everything that you're saying about the mirrors and like checking your appearance completely tracks and checks out.
Right.
But it was definitely about the driving test.
I do think it was on purpose that they waited on that reveal, though.
Yeah.
Like I got that vibe for sure.
That they wanted the people to relate to cringe a little bit.
Yeah. To cringe at the way her mother was treating her, but also see the father as like sort of an ally in that moment,
Yeah.
I am surprised at how much I felt represented in this show.
Yep.
Like,
me too. I said before we started, but ADHD Marvel podcaster is what she is.
Am I right? Like, it was a surprising amount of relatability for me, like, having gone through high school undiagnosed ADHD and like watching her as soon as somebody starts talking about something that's like the same spiel you've heard over and over and over again about you need to get your life together. You need to figure out everything right now because it's junior year of high school. You're 16 and you need to figure out everything right now. Like, first off, that's ridiculous, but we as children in America hear that so much, so early. And then those of us with that disorder, I'll call it that, with that condition, we just blank out. We check out because we know everything that's been said. We know that everything is going to be said. And it's just like, well, there's a butterfly. I could look at literally anything and be not paying attention to this.
Yeah.
And like, I felt it so hard. And then all of the shame from the family of like, we raise you better than this, or like, you need to focus on you need to figure yourself out. Like, no, mom, this is not how you handle this. Like you need to get the child to a therapist. Like, all of these things, the hyperfixation on the thing that she loves and the distractibility and the daydreaming, like all of these things, like that ticks so many boxes.
Yeah. Like, like I'm no therapist and I can't diagnose a fictional character, but it definitely seems like she has some similar symptoms to the ADHD that I have. Yeah. And then I definitely felt that. And it felt very, it felt very seen. I think like the entirety of the fan community is going to be seen by this show. And like, us specifically as lovers of and podcasters and ADHD people, and then Zoo, you have all that cultural context. Like this, another thing I was really thinking about is this is such a we've talked a lot about how are they going to start the next phase of Marvel and how are they going to introduce new people to Marvel characters without them watching 23 movies, 24, 25, 26, whatever it is now. This is so perfect. It is a girl who's a great age for kids to be excited, and she's a fan of these other characters. And so she is telling us about the Battle of Earth. And then she's telling us about Captain Marvel. She's telling us about Captain America. It is just so wonderful to see like a great idea play out that way, because it's a really wonderful show. It's a great like pop fantasy sitcom. Like, it's really, really wonderful, but it also functions as a Miss Marvel's going to tell us about the Marvel universe and what it's like because she's a fan of it. And then they could literally have her just travel through the movies, meeting all the characters and saying, oh my gosh, I heard about when you da-da-da-da-da, and that like catches up these younger folks that are on her train, like it's just such a smart way to be. And you notice they of course they threw in Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, excited about the reference points, by the way. But
not gonna talk about it.
I'm not gonna talk about it.
That's a different episode.
Basically, everything's maxed out on most of the characters. But But also, they focused on two, and they had a lot of Doctor Strange in there, and they had a lot of Captain Marvel, and those are two characters that are still around. They're still in the universe, and I think they're trying to make sure we know, like, hey, look, it's these characters. They're making sure people who don't know these characters get to know these characters, and I think that's so smart.
Riding off of both of those points, one of the important things about that opening scene is that we have been looking at these heroes from the perspective of like somebody watching a movie, right? Like we see these heroes going through what they're going through. Kamala explaining her perspective shows how much exposure of like the events of the Avengers has actually been out to the world. Yeah. Because, and her specifically saying that Ant-Man has been on podcasts and stuff was super crucial, because it's like, how is the public getting this information? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? Because they don't see what we see as viewers. So I think that was a really important thing to show, like, hey, the heroes are interacting with the media, world. They are unveiling their identities. They are getting involved, like, with communities and stuff. And if you had asked me this about, like, in Phase 2, I would wonder, like, when would the public have ever seen Thor unless they happen to be at one of the incidents, or Hulk, or Ant-Man? Like, that's a very important thing to establish, is that the world and the community actually talk about the events, and they have like debriefs and all that stuff. So I thought that was really cool.
I think that introduces a like that part about Ant-Man, especially, or Scott Lang being on the podcast. It introduces a fun idea, in my opinion, of people out in the world of the MCU may not necessarily have the right information about events or things, because
what are you talking about? Caps on the moon.
We can't necessarily rely on, or we can't trust the reliability of the narrator. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't necessarily trust Scott remembering everything absolutely perfectly.
Sure, yeah. I love that opening scene. It's basically animated with little drawings that she had. It's so freaking good. Yeah, Zoo's just partying over there, because it's such a cool style of animation going on there. It's like almost like chalk art looking little
it's
things.
Like chalk stop motion.
Yeah, how cool is that?
I loved it. It was so beautiful, and the art was amazing, and it's just like a kid doodling all of this. I love it so much.
It's so great, and it's all like looks like it's going on her like YouTube channel or whatever. Yeah. Like, it's just so good. Yep. But she's telling the story, and she's like, I've collected this over all the podcast appearances of Scott Lang. Like,
she's been doing research
together. Yeah.
She's like, I've been doing my own research. That's the thing. That's
doing my own research.
That opening sequence served so many purposes all at once. Like, it established, or rather, it was a bit of exposition for people who, may not necessarily remember everything or haven't been caught up on everything. It established that she is one of us, that she's a fangirl, the exact same as the rest of us. And it helped to also establish just how much of a fangirl she is, and show that, like, she's doing these videos, these podcasts, these whatever else, like, she's putting stuff out there. She's a creator of that sort of thing, like us. And then it also helps to kind of establish, like, what information is available to the public for people to, because it's not like she was recording the video or the podcast or anything, saying like, this is some super secret intel I'm going to bring you in on. I found this out from my sources. I've been scouring the ruins or anything. She's like, I literally read the news and I'm recounting it here.
She feels like she's an insider, like all this research I've done by podcast appearances, but she's just a 16-year-old girl listening to podcasts. I often feel like I have inside information about like, whatever podcast I listen to, but I'm one of millions of people probably listening to that same podcast, and it's just, it's very funny. And this thing, she thinks she's going to have the best costume. She shows up. There's a lot of girls dressed as Captain Marvel, and it's like she's a fan and she's realizing there's this bigger world of fans, and it's super fun, man. I love it. I love it so much. And speaking of the animation, by the way, those animated things that are happening along the buildings.
Oh yes. So much to say.
So much. Go for it, Zoo.
So it's actually related to what we were talking about before, when we were talking about the whole ADHD thing. When that was happening, I was like, how am I supposed to focus on the animation her at the same time? Like, this isn't working. But then what cracked me up was when she just rode her bike like in the middle of a basketball game to show like how into it like her and Bruno both were. I was like, oh yeah, she's definitely,
that's awesome.
She doesn't have the attention span. Like, she's so locked into her thought process of like what mix and match hero that she can do that she's just like interrupting this game and like could possibly just gotten knocked out with the ball at that point. And like that part of it was just awesome. Like everything that we discussed was literally compiled in that one scene.
Yep. That was, that's that hyper focus of, ADHD brain. Like, nothing else matters except for this thing that I am fixated on.
Yep.
God, I get it. I'm there. I've been there so many times. One of the things that I absolutely loved was the like incorporating the emojis from their text conversation, like between her and Bruno, incorporating those emojis into all of the neon signs that were all over the buildings.
And just like paint on the road and stuff like that. Like, so it's very incorporated to the environment. I was like, this is genius.
It was so great.
It reminded me a lot. This experimental nature of this, and I don't know what they're drawing inspiration from. There may be something that's a little more indie that has done
comic
something
books.
like well, obviously, but like
all of them.
I don't know if something's done something similar, but this reminded me of as experimental and in a similar way as Into the Spider-Verse, like all the stuff happening around, the text happening around as things go and like different things he's thinking happening in his head.
Yeah, and like when the bagel hits the guy in the head and it's like, bagel!
Yeah, because you don't want to have like the sitcom stereotype of people like always showing up at other people's doors. Like, we text a lot. We talk on the phone, not as much, but we text a lot. Yeah. So it's like, how do you make that creative? How do you make that stand out from instead of just having the green and blue text bubbles? So for them to like really think of that and have a texting scene intriguing was very impressive, because it's one of those things that's one of those things I pay attention to, of like how texts are distributed in like modern media, because it's such an important form of communication. So like the fact that people are finding niches, but this one just stood out to the extent that it did. I was like, this is awesome. It's almost like if it didn't have the sound, like the whoosh of a message coming in, I'd be like, are they texting? Because I'm like looking around, I was like, what message am I missing right now? What emoji am I missing right now?
Yeah, we talked a lot about this, and Ashley, she tends to like the adult stuff, and I think she's like, yeah, this is more, probably more a family show, not as much her thing. The thing that I found, and yes, it's definitely family oriented, it's family friendly, but like, it does not feel like a kid's show. Like, it doesn't feel like a Disney Channel show. It feels to me like one of the sort of like fantasy sitcoms that you see. It feels like Scrubs or Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist or Ally McBeal, where you've got these sort of fantastical elements. It's very rhythmic, like everything's moving quickly, everything's set to music a lot of times. When they opened with that Weekend song, I was like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I was like, I'm into this, man. That got me hyped right away.
That and all the old school Bollywood songs on the cutscenes in the market, like those equally made me happy. But Never Have I Ever was another one that really made me think of that, because it's about an Indian girl, and it's like they took the best parts of that and were just like, Marvelify it.
Yep. Well, I mean, that was the first one that I thought of, is that, it's high school kids, especially a high school girl, especially a high school girl from foreign parents, like, or rather non-American parents, but like it fits, like it's that high school experience problem, but then because we're Marvelifying it, it's like, oh, also Avengers are a thing. They're all it's right there. She's got posters on her wall of all of them, and I'm like, oh my god, I would have done exactly that in high school if Avengers had come out at that time. Like,
if this existed then.
Iron Man came out when I was in high school.
Stop calling us old. Stop it, Zoo.
God.
I try to relate to the experience, okay?
There was a co-op, one of the like college co-ops that has started working for us this semester at the company that I work for, and he said I was just graduating from preschool when Iron Man came out, and I was like, ah! God, replace my hip, why don't you? Like, ouch.
That's pretty.
And then I like proceeded to tell the story of like that opening night for Iron Man, like being 3 years out of high school. I thought that it was a fine idea to leave the theater, go get food, and go right back to the theater at midnight because I was an adult.
Well,
why not?
Being out of college.
Yeah, right.
Being 3 years out of college no, I think I was just finishing college. Oh man.
Either way, like, God, replace my hip, why don't you?
So 2008, I think I was a freshman.
You know what's telling about this show? We've talked about how much fun it is. We've talked about how much fun we've had. We've talked about the experience with the characters and all this. We haven't even mentioned her powers. So, like, that's a huge positive in my book, because, like, the show stands without it being a superhero show. The show is just good. I care about the characters. Like, that's what matters. That's what makes a superhero show able to work. And yeah, she only used them a little bit in this episode, but like, it is such a strong indicator that this is going to be a well done show, that we're like just gushing about the characters and the way the show is done and everything else, Yep. So good.
And like, even after the powers were revealed, even after the power reveal and the initial thing, they went right back to, oh, by the way, family and disappointed parents, and like, you lied to me. God, you, even though you knew that it would betray me, you still went out and did it. And I was like, oh, Dad, no. Like,
I've done that.
Speaking of the Hulk, speaking of his dad,
the
Hulk, man, the Hulk costumes were amazing.
I would absolutely be that man's little Hulk.
He jumped in and said, "Chuck the fuck that." I was like, oh my god, like that just hyped me up even more. That's kind of like, let's get it. Like when you're about to do something and you're hype up. Like when I give my mom good news, like she like yells that or like types it in a text, "Chuck the fuck that."
That's awesome.
So the fact that he said that when he came in like made me so happy. But man, that whole scene reminded me of do you guys remember the Goofy movie?
Yes, very well. Way too well, to be honest.
Goofy wanted to take Max and he just threw the toy from the amusement park out. Like, that broke my heart, and that gave me very similar vibes. I'm like, dude, if I'm 29 and my dad has never been that involved with, like, stuff that I just geek about. Like, the fact that he dressed up for you, and if I could have a Shelvira Gummies version of superhero suits, like, I would wear that to every freaking wedding and Eve and party, like, that I could. Like, that's the only set that I need. So, man, I was like, like, I get that you are a Miss Marvel fan. I get that you are like a teenager and it was a coming of age thing, but it was one of those things like, dude, he went hard for you. He went really like, and then he was like, Bada Hulk, Choti Hulk. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Yes, right? Go, please go.
Well, see, and that's why I think that mirror misdirect is so important at the beginning, because like they sort of do this thing with that mirror discussion where they make you think the mom is like really judgmental for a second. And then they bring it back to sort of normal, but it's like she feels very like judged, and like she's really trying to push her parents away. But obviously, I think the arc of the show is going to be learning to accept your heritage and your family and like drawing strength from it and not not being oppressed by it, but also not pushing it totally away,
And then you want to know what the origin of her Nani is too. Like, what did her mom experience from her mom that she's like very against it? Because she recognized that bangle.
She did.
Yeah, so there's actually a differentiation. So Nani, like the title is specific to how you're related to them. So Nani is always like on the mother's side, and Dadi is always like on the dad's side. So the fact that she says Nani is specifically her mom's mom.
Yeah, and she says, when she's talking about the Nani, at the very end, she says, I've seen what happens when people get obsessed with their fantasies. Mm-hmm. And it really makes me wonder, like, what happened with her Nani in this bracer or whatever.
Yeah, after the whole car incident at the beginning too, like when Kamala started spacing out, like that's the same thing her mom was saying. She was like, "This is all my fault. Like I used to be
it's my genetics."
I'm like, huh?
She specifically mentioned it's my genetics. Yeah. She said it's my genetics, not Dad. You and I both did bad here. It wasn't that. It's my genetics.
Her mom's got PTSD from something.
And she's trying to protect her daughter from that. And it's, she apparently didn't enough because she's got the bracers now. And now I think she's, I love this kind of story where like you think it's all about the daughter, but it sounds like the mother has some issues too that she needs to work through. And I have a feeling she's going to be like, coming to terms with who her mother was and stuff like that.
And in regards to like origin story, I find it fascinating like how they did AvengerCon. Like I don't read comics, but I know enough to know that there's always an incident at an AvengerCon.
Oh, funny.
So the fact that they had comics, the Avengers video game started off like that.
Yep.
And then this did it, but to a much smaller scale than all of San Francisco blowing up. And because they're not doing Terrigen crystals, I like that her powers actually look like Terrigen crystals.
Yeah.
So they're incorporating it without directly having to take that route. And from a design and animation perspective, that is a great choice. Like, I love the way that looked.
So when she put it on, right? When she put the bangle on, like the thing went up her arm, across her shoulders, and down the other arm. And then it looked like she fell back into another world, or at least an alternate view of the world around her, and then fell out of that and into this world. That kind of says to me, that's the same thing as the Terrigenesis, right? Mm-hmm. Where like she gets put into a different place, inside the cocoon of the Terrigenesis cocoon, and then coming out of that, it's sort of like the baptism and rebirth, right? But she's getting reborn as this hero, or person with powers, whatever, because she put the thing on, and it's like it interacted with her much the same way that the Terrigenesis and the Terrigen crystals interact with someone of an inhuman bloodline. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love that they went for that way. And like, not only do the powers kind of like resemble a crystalline structure, but like the way that the structure like lengthened out of her hand, like came away from her hand and stretched out to catch the girl.
Oh yeah.
Like absolutely brilliant way to do that. Like to do the crystalline and cosmic and whatever, the light.
To reference her comic book powers.
To reference her comic book powers and the stretchiness, the embiggening, if you will.
Yeah, we have enough stretchy superheroes. This is a nice twist on that.
Yeah, man, yeah. I love that they had the party at Camp Lehigh. That was super fun.
It said the home of Captain America, and I was like, actually, wouldn't it be the birthplace of Captain America? He lived in New York. Like, I was one of those actually kind of nerds in that moment.
So, like, for me, I will always watch something for the first time, trying not to pause, and I won't watch with subtitles. So as it was going, one of the frames that I caught was a chibi of Captain America pointing at his ass, and the dialogue just says, like, you're welcome
America.
Yep. That one was my favorite.
That was so good. There was so much in Avengers. There was so much just in the episode, but there was so much in actual Avengers Con, and there was so much random stuff in her thought of the plan of attending Avengers Con. Mm-hmm. and they looked very different.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was actually in like Carol Danvers' suit.
Yeah. And like her interpretation of it was like, Bruno looks exactly like Tony Stark. He's got the Edith glasses on. Yeah. Like everybody has a perfect costume. It looks like just a rager of a party. And then like when it actually happens, it's a bunch of cosplay nerds doing cosplay.
Mm-hmm. It's so good.
Dude, Bruno is such a gem. Like you
so
can
good.
tell
So
how in tune with the family he is. Like he's helping the uncle like set up the technology and stuff. Auntie has like food and stuff prepared for him to take out. This is how in tune with culture it is that I'm not even calling them by their names. Like I feel like I'm being disrespectful by not calling them uncle and auntie, but I'm talking about their parents. And the fact that he actually says Urdu and Pakistan properly, like he didn't say Pakistan, he said Pakistan, and I was like, good for you, kid. Like you're actually learning. And like he tried to say I think he said like turn off the lights or something in Urdu.
Turn on the lights.
Like, yeah, it's like, wow, good for you.
Yeah, that was impressive.
That was really cool because there was even the one person in the hallway scene that called her like Camila or something like that, and she was like, I guess that's my name.
Yeah, that was the PE coach. It's like, good to see you're not bruising after that dodgeball incident.
Yeah, and then she's gonna have to play dodgeball with her powers at some point, right? Like that, that feels like what's gonna happen. I guess other people can see the light she's producing. I was just wondering, if that was like, I was trying to think of why her mother would have these negative associations with Nani and stuff. And I was wondering if that was like in her imagination, like when she caught the girl or whatever, could everyone see her hand reach out or was that just her?
Well, yeah, they caught it on video.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
They caught it on video.
Well, no, they didn't show the hand part. Did they show the hand part on the video?
It was kind of scrambly.
Yeah.
They showed her when she was like zapping the room or whatever.
Yeah. Court OB said in the chat something that like I would love to talk about the possibility of. The mom rejected the cuff and chose to marry, but what if, or I think that was in reference to somebody else saying it. Can't find who said it. I'm sorry, but what if the mom tried to put the cuff on and like it rejected her, like she didn't get the powers from it. Like her, like
possibly it
like feels, it skipped a generation.
It's possible. It feels to me like whatever happened with her mother drove her to be very anti whatever's going on here. So it seems to me like it's probable she made the decision, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that she made the decision, but it might be. It's probably a better story that she made the decision of like, I don't want that life.
Yeah,
I don't want that superhero life. Rather than like, I was denied, so I'm going to resent it.
Mm-hmm.
Must say, or the family made the decision for her.
Yeah.
Oh, Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking the toxic part of Pakistani culture, that's very likely.
Oh, Zoo, you just hurt my heart so much.
Yeah. And that definitely goes with the themes of,
I don't want to be right.
She might, it makes a lot of sense if she's turning around and then trying to tell her daughter who she is, and she was told who she was, and she was going to be, and now she's perpetuating that. And you talked about the immigrant story of like bringing your kids over, and then if they deviate from the plan, and that's the thing is like, you make this plan, and it's a generational plan to make your family successful. And you like the first part of the plan is getting the family here and then building like a business or doing whatever you need to do. And then you have to count on the next generation to carry it on. And then when they start just doing whatever they want, it's like, no, wait, you don't get to make your own decisions. This isn't part of the plan that I've been working on for 40 years or whatever.
You're going to be a doctor.
And that was one of those super relatable ones because me and my sister are flip-flopped in Amir and Kamala's roles in the sense that, like, I came here from Pakistan when I was a kid. So growing up, like, I was kind of like the middleman between my family and, let's just say, the Western world. So growing up, like, I was trying to understand American culture because I grew up with Pakistani culture. My sister was born here, so she grew up knowing the American stuff, and she's better at Urdu than I am. She like understands like the cultures and the religions and the practices and stuff better than I do. But she's younger than me and she was born here, right? And then she's in the medical field, so it's like good for her. but I was the joke that wanted to be a photographer and said in high school, like, yeah, I'm going to go to school for photography. So all my friends being in IT, engineering, lawyer, doctors, whatnot, like the community, like all the aunties and uncles that I grew up with, like they basically laughed at it. Like, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your life being a photographer. And even now, like, I've had my career for 7 years now. Like, Shukr, I'm doing very well in it, but like I still get oh, you're still doing the photography, huh? Same, but real estate photographer. I'm an architecture photography specialist. Like, respect what I do. And it's just like the people who respect it, but I had to grow up with that of like, my sister is and I'm not trying to say that she's perfect, because obviously I know what she goes through behind the scenes and this and that, but like, she was like the acha bacha, the good kid of being in the medical field and being involved, and I was the dweeb that like moved away from Richmond and became a photographer and this and that. So it's like, that was one of those things that was like, ooh, I feel.
Man.
Yeah.
And then one of my friends in the group chat just said #brown people, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So thanks for listening, bud.
Man, that's I relate to that in a strong way. I've gotten so many times from so many family members, you're too smart to be working in the restaurant industry. You're too smart for a truck driving job. I've held several jobs over the years, you guys. It's that ADHD, like, I want to go do something else tendency. But I just constantly, you're too smart for whatever job I feel is lesser than, whatever I think that you should be doing. And like, that just, it makes the show, it makes everything that Zoo was just saying, it makes all of these things so relatable and hit so hard. God, this show hits so hard.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, I definitely relate to those. Like, more societally, my parents were not very pushy about what I would do, but I'm a musician for a living, so there's definitely a lot of, like, I still to this day, if I meet someone and I'm like, I'm a musician and podcaster, they're immediately like, really? Are you like?
And then when you and I hung out for the first time, I was like, dude, it's amazing that you have a career as a musician. Like, I feel you. I relate to you. Like, I'm super impressed that you're doing this.
Same to you as a photographer, man. Like, it's hard to make a living as doing art. It's just hard. And it's
hard out here for a pimp.
Hard out here for a. Yeah, whatever.
For an artist.
Real quick, with the sloth with wings, was that a cultural thing? Was that a reference to something? What's the sloth with wings? Was that just her?
It was just catchy.
Okay, she has the stuffed animal.
Well, that was her YouTube channel.
Oh, that was what it's called? Sloth with wings?
Yeah.
Oh, it's something like that.
Okay.
It was like,
she's also got she's got a big stuffed animal that I guess she cares about a lot because her dad picked on her, or her dad or mom picked on her about it, saying that, or maybe it was her brother.
It was her brother.
Yeah, the brother was like, yeah, you seem like a baby or whatever.
This is for a 12-year-old and just throws it out. And also, who makes chai before going to bed? Like, that's very heavily caffeinated, and you wake up to that and you have your 5 o'clock chai break. Like, how did you take a sip of that and then go to sleep? Like, no, it doesn't work like that. But paratha for breakfast, I'm 100% down with.
I don't think I know any of those things.
You're saying a lot of words right now, and I'm not getting them.
It's like if naan and a tortilla had a baby. That's paratha. Like, it's very flat, but it's still fluffy. And that's such a good breakfast. And just like hit that on the frying pan, just have it with like plain yogurt.
Nice.
Very ideal. And then chai is just tea.
Sounds like a whole lot of carbs, and I don't need that in my life right now.
Same.
I have a bunch in my freezer.
Nice. About my two favorite jokes in the whole thing, and they just made me laugh really hard, was the, like, when I just really like her style of telling stories and how she just makes up a better world than she has, talking about how much her family's just going to be praising her for her life choices and stuff. And
they were all wearing the shirts that I Love Kamala shirts.
Yeah, they're all wearing I Love Kamala shirts. And then she goes to the thing in her dream, in her fantasy, and she says, I'm assuming it's made of real diamonds. And he's like, it's not. it. Essentially, I don't know why that one got me really, really hard. And then another one, which was I guess a similar pattern, was her dad being like, "Wait, you cannot leave. You have to listen to what I have to say about parrots.
You have to listen to what I have to say about parrots."
Then she was like, "Nope," and then just walks away.
Nope. Talking specifically about that sequence of, here's what we're going to do, the heist plan almost. I love that when she's explaining the plan to Bruno, like, we get to see what she expects of it. And, they're like riding their bikes and like leaping off of the bridge. He has commentary on what she's seeing.
Yep. Well, no. She's drawn it. She's showing him a thing of the drawings. It looks like she's drawing it everywhere, like throughout the day almost. But like it ends on the chalkboard. And like when he gives his final note on like, so your plan is to take the bus, like you see the chalkboard behind her is just full of this plan, just like everything written out, drawn out. I love that he has commentary on it. It's like, are we leaping onto a bus?
Like, and then they get to the point where they're on the bridge and they look at each other like, no, and then just run down the stairs.
Yep.
You think my bike's going to be there when we get back in Jersey City?
0.0001% chance. It's really good. It's good stuff.
I mean, let's face it, like, with how good she is at editing for YouTube and all the stuff on the board, like, she clearly needs to be a storyboarder when she grows up.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, she has an artistic career ahead of her. Easily.
Well, that's what I love. We've heard this power kind of compared to Green Lantern's power a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be like that. I don't know if she's going to be able to actually, like, make things with it, or if it's just going to be like, she can apparently make a hand that grows out of her. Is she just going to have extensions of her body? Is she going to be able to form it into items? Like, what is she going to be able to do with this power? And like, I wonder if with that imagination that she has, is she going to be able to just like make a lot of cool things? Kind of like in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where you got
to make some really weird shit, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
I thought I was going to get kicked off if I mentioned a DC character, so I'm glad you said it.
No.
I just want you to know I'm disappointed in you, Matt.
Thanks, man. I take that as a compliment from you.
Good.
We have gone way longer than we normally do on a reaction cast because we had a lot of fun with this, but we do have a bunch of people writing in the chat, so I want to give them their due. Let's see. We got Court OB says, what got me in my feelings as both a child and a parent was her dad trying so hard to join her in her interests. And she hurt him so bad. I try for my kids 24/7 and feel that hurt at times. And I've seen my parents try with me too.
The strongest memory that I have of knowing how hard my mom actually tried is when I was in college. I was telling both my parents about like some Blu-rays that I ordered, and my mom called me to say that my dad called her and was like, why are you letting him spend money on like why is he wasting money on stuff like that? And her response, I'll never forget, she was like, he's in college. He could be out like drinking or doing drugs or something. He's at home watching superhero movies. If that's what he's spending his money on, I'm perfectly fine with that.
As she should be. As she should be.
Oh, man. That reminds me of what the mom was saying about when like she was giving the conditions for like, I know that there's going to be a bunch of this kind of stuff at your Avengers party. Don't argue with me. I know that there's going to be this,
all this haram stuff.
Yep.
All this haram. Yeah.
Yep.
And
which is like sinful behavior, right? In Muslim culture.
So basically she's like, I know that this is happening. I know that this is going to happen. You can't argue with me. This is how it is. But we're going to implement a couple of checks to keep you in, or like to protect you. God, she said, I'm trying to protect you from yourself. God.
It's rough.
But then, her dad jumps in all painted green and stuff. And
man, yeah, I felt so bad for the dad getting turned down there. It's so bad. Oh.
Well, the dad didn't even get a chance to like talk at that point because she just ran upstairs after all the no's. It was after Amir talked to them that the whole Hulk scene happened.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the dad didn't get a chance to be like, well, what if, like, what if I'm a good dad? Like, what if I'm a supportive parent for...
Yeah. He was trying so hard. That green paint doesn't come off easy. I'm sorry.
He got that in his ears, man.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
I did that for this year's Stranded Panda Halloween on Twitch, and it did not look good, but that green stayed on me for days.
I need a line of superhero shell art gummies, and every bit of merch that was at Avengers Con needs to be in Disney's shop within the next 6 weeks, so that is a payout opportunity.
Within the next 6 hours. Do it now.
Yeah, I need it now, Marvel. Where is it?
I want that You're Welcome, America. I want that as much as I want the shell art gummies.
Yes. All right, we got to run through these pretty quick. Ethical Panda says, her being a fan reminded me of The Boys in that it gets into the celebrity culture around superheroes. Yeah.
Yeah, that checks
Absolutely. Speaking of it reminding him of a horrible show that is terrible and you should not compare to the sweet, sweet Miss Marvel. Just kidding. I love The Boys, but it's out there on the, hard to watch sometimes side. But
especially if you're trying to compare it to this show.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Like this show's TV PG. The Boys is not.
The Boys is not.
It's very not.
For those listening, the second he said the comparison with The Boys, like my eyes got wide, my jaw just dropped. Like, where is this going? I don't like
Don't get Kamala near that. There's way too much haram in The Boys, okay? Way too much haram.
You want to know haram? Watch The Boys. That's all the stuff that Auntie's worried about.
Yep.
Okay. One of the things that this show reminded me of in the middle of it that made me uncomfortable was when Kamala sits on the bed and she falls. They did that camera movement where the camera followed with her body, falls with her. And that is straight out of Euphoria. And I don't know if you guys have watched Euphoria, but it's just
it's on my list.
It's just like a drug and sex fueled high school show. But someone does drugs and they fall into the bed, and it's like that same sort of fall sideways thing. And I was like, no, don't think about Euphoria during the show. It's different kind of high school.
She's high on Terrigen.
Yeah, true. Oof. All right, up next we have CS Strong 007 says, her giving the recap of an in-game battle, I think shows us how much is known about the battle by the public.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was quite a few people in the chat talking about how, that's how Ant-Man ended up in the musical, was because he's the one telling all the stories. So of course, he inserted himself in the story he wasn't
That's
in for.
amazing. That is amazing. Oh, I'm
sorry I'm not giving credit to who said it, but
that's
you can
amazing.
Either speak up or just know that I see you.
Good idea. That's a great idea.
You are seen.
I'd love it if we get the next Avengers movie and he's like a celebrity because he's the one that's willing to talk. Everyone else is like, no, I do it for the whatever. And he's like a criminal who has no money and he's like, no, I got to make money somehow. I'm a celebrity now.
He's not a criminal. He's an ex-con.
I'm sorry. But he also...
How dare you?
He's willing to crime when he needs to, okay? He was technically a criminal in a Civil War. A criminal. That little criminal.
I mean, he's a criminal of reputation right now. If he's putting himself in situations he contributed to.
Oof.
Truth.
Well, in fairness, Battle of New York, right? Battle of New York, he wasn't there in Avengers 2012, but he was there as of Avengers Endgame. So he was technically present during those events as far as the timeline is concerned.
I feel like that he's just telling everybody that he was at everything.
He was there, so maybe he's told stories about his time at that battle. Maybe. And then he's been like, time travel didn't exist. I was just there. Time travel's classified. I was just there. I happened to be there. So it's become a thing.
It's either that or he's telling the story and they're like, no, he didn't time travel. He was just there. I'm just going to assume you were there because time travel doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Teach Ash says, what is the difference between her TV show and comic book powers? In the comic book, she's basically Mr. Fantastic. She can stretch. And we don't really know much about her TV show powers except for it seems like it's manifesting light or crystals line versions of objects that she's thinking of.
That's good.
Story in the video game was really good. So if you're a gamer, go play the Avengers game and you'll see. I mean, you have to learn how to use her powers in the game. So
yeah. The game's a great way to learn about. It's obviously not the comic book version, but about her powers at least. Ethical Panda again says, talking about animation and earlier discussion, please tell me you noticed that the Captain Marvel animation had her zooming away with a full-on pride rainbow.
There was a lot of pride representation in this episode. Like,
I saw a little of that, yeah.
At Avengers Con.
I don't know anything about Kamala Khan's sexuality at all in the comics, but there was a moment between her and that influencer girl, and I think after we found out she was an influencer, I think it was just her being a fangirl or like being like, oh, I don't know how to talk to this person, but it seemed like Kamala might have a thing for her for a second. I was like, uh-oh.
I think it was just like they used to be sort of friends, and
oh, really?
Right after that, she said her mom used to take us to school.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get that.
They were trying to ask her for a ride, but it's a thing like when you were all awkward in middle school, it was okay to hang out, but I mean, for the sake of explaining stereotypes, like one's quote unquote pretty and the other's dorky, so it's like
there it is.
Different cliques.
Yeah, we grew apart.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'll be friends when they're in their like late 20s when one has like a pyramid scheme.
Yep, she'll have her crypto or whatever.
Avon calling.
All right, CS Strong 007 says, did Nani send the bands hoping for Kamala to get them?
Ooh, yeah.
Did Nani send the bands? Do we know if Nani is still alive? Did they inherit him? What did they say?
She sent a box of her old stuff.
Yeah. Like the mom was saying, this is, she's... I wish I could say that it's just her age doing this, but she's always been this way. She's trying to give up, or she's trying to give away all of her junk before she dies.
Yeah. But like the way that she perceived it was fascinating, because it was like, look what your nanny sent. And then as soon as she saw the bangle, she was like, oh yeah, look at her. This is all just crap. Just throw it upstairs.
Well, she did say she's trying to give away all of her junk before seeing the bangle. And like she called it junk kind of nonchalantly.
Yeah, she was like, yeah, your nanny sent all this.
But then when she saw the bangle, it was very direct, very pointed. That is junk.
Grabbed it from her real fast.
That is absolutely junk, and took it from her.
But her red dupatta was in that too.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great catch, Zoo. Did we know Scott Lang had a podcast? I don't think he has a podcast. It said all of his podcast appearances, so I'm assuming that means he's a guest. And then he also said, get him and Luis together, and that would be gold. I agree. Man. And then Ethical Panda says, I think the rainbow was a comment on Cap Marvel's sexuality, not Kamala's. That is very possible.
That's fair. There's potential there.
I know there's been speculation about that. I don't know if I don't know. Again, I know nothing about the comics versions of these characters' sexuality.
I was so close to stepping up on a soapbox being like, it doesn't fucking matter.
That's what I say. I was like, I'm keeping my mouth shut on that.
Obviously, it doesn't, and no judgment. I'm just curious what they're trying to say with the things. They put it on the screen. I didn't actually see it, so I didn't catch it.
It doesn't matter is like from the in-universe personal perspective of like, why do you care what her sexuality is?
Yeah.
That's her. If she likes you, she likes you, then move on with your fucking life.
Right.
But
it can matter intensely to the story, especially like relating to your parents and immigrant parents and like trying to fit into different cultures and all that stuff. So it can matter, but it's just...
Well, I'm Captain sure it matters. I'm not going to try to guess what somebody's sexuality is. Like when they speak out on it, they speak out on it. When they have their preference, it's just...
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care what the comic origin was, because this is a show. Like, they're drawing stuff, but the character's going to evolve how they evolve. They make the choices they make, and the story's going to carry on however they decide. But it's not for me to sit here and be like, well, this happened, so I think she swings that way, and that happened, so I think this is her preference. Like, when we find out, we find out. Like, there's so much stuff to talk about. That's not something I want to divert my attention to, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I'm sorry if that's, like, offensive in any way, but let's just... That doesn't factor for me. Like, there's so much beautiful stuff that we saw in this episode, and I'm just more
the stuff that you know about
happens from going on just happens then. That's not a concern now.
I hear that. I think it's. I don't think there's anything wrong discussing it, but I hear you that like we don't know anything yet, and that was a If anything, it was a misdirect with the girl from her childhood or whatever. Because I did not hear they say that they were childhood friends.
But speaking of Carol Danvers, though, in the beginning, her little animation of, like, when she was talking about her experience in Endgame, like, she had long hair. I was like, she didn't have long hair in Endgame, and it went through, like, all these different haircuts. I was like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love that, too.
And while Captain Marvel was shifting haircuts, Kamala was saying, and she looked great doing it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I was like,
so cute.
Okay.
I loved it.
All right, I'm down.
I love it. I just love it. She's such a fangirl, and I love it so much. And I cannot wait to see more from her. All right, guys. Well, that is going to be all for tonight's podcast. We are going to be back on Sunday night with more. What do we say? 5:00 Central on Sunday, and we're going to do a feedback episode. So send in your feedback to mcucast@gmail.com. Try to get it to us by Saturday or so we can make sure to get it all rounded up and ready for the Sunday podcast. We're excited to talk about this show more. Zoo, where can they find your stuff?
Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation seriously, but not too seriously. You got a little taste of like my animation perspective in this. We are currently, actually this week is the last episode for Young Justice, so if you want to flip over the DC side of things, we also have Lightyear coming up, and we also have our third interview in the books. We are planning that out right now, so keep an eye out for that, because we would love for Pandas to send in questions to ask these interviewers, or interviewees. So we're really excited for that. And then lastly, like, thank you guys again for letting me be on here to talk about like how deep the show is, and thank you to all the pandas that texted me starting like at 6 a.m, just super excited to like hear what I had to say. Like, I never thought that my opinion about superhero stuff would be something that someone would look forward to like literally around the world. So like literally, like, thank you guys so much for your energy, and just it was exciting. Like, my heart, I typically come on here for fun, but my heart was actually racing because I just wanted to make sure that like what I had to say was value to you guys. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. I knew months ago that I wanted you on here for the weekly episodes for this show. And then, like, as I'm watching the show, I'm like, Zoo's probably loving this. Zoo loves this so much.
The AI's name was Zuzu.
Yeah.
True.
They put you in the show. You didn't even know.
The first message that I got was Zuzu in all caps before I saw this from Trevor, and I was like, what is that about? And then I saw it, I was like, oh.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
That's hilarious.
All right, guys. Well, we're so happy to have you, Zoo. Thank you for being here. And we'll talk to you guys Sunday. Send in your feedback. Peace.
Until next time, true believers.
Stay whelmed.
Thank you for joining us for the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. Available everywhere you get podcasts, and now a video version streaming live on twitch.tv/strandedpandatv and available at youtube.com/strandedpanda. And if you'd like to learn more about all of our other podcasts, geeky projects, and ways to support the network, visit strandedpanda.com.